You got some problems that you wanna solve? Then let's chat. That job getting on your nerves? Then let's chat. Girl, you know I can relate, so let's chat. Cause I'ma tell you what the bottom line is.
I'ma tell you what the bottom line is. I'ma tell you what the bottom line is. I'ma tell you what the bottom.
It's your girl Cece. I'm your hostess with the mostest.
line is.
I'ma tell you what the bottom line is.
Welcome to another episode of The Bottom Line Is. It's your girl Cece. This week 3 episode, we're going to be talking about, health related items. And, as we do this intro month, it's me just kind of introducing you all into my life in hopes, again, that it helps you. So specifically today, we're going to be talking about caregiving. So the majority of my life is dedicated to being a caregiver. I have been a caregiver since 2009. My great-grandmother, who we will always refer to here as Nana, she fell while her eyes were dilated and hit her forehead, actually gashed it, and had to get stitches, but later found out that, she had to kind of just lie flat because she had a fracture in her L3, L5 vertebrae, which apparently had been there before the fall, but the medical professionals and me not knowing a lot of what I know now thought it was beneficial for her to just kind of be flat, therefore causing a person that is in their 80s to lose muscle memory. And then they put her in rehab. And while in rehab, they gave her the wrong medicine. Even though we were there every day, I don't know to this day when they were giving this to her, but every time we would walk in there, she would just be like unmotivated, head to the side and just like not motivated. Therefore, she wasn't doing anything in therapy. And so when we had a meeting with the staff and they informed us that they were giving her Neurontin, which is a nerve pill, it slows things down a little bit. And that explained why, because it was supposed to be given PRN, which was what was in the note, but they were giving it to her every day. So yeah. Now looking back in hindsight, I probably could have took some legal action about that, because then when you're in rehab and you have Medicare, you can only be in the facilities for, I think it's 21 days. And we obviously didn't find this out until towards the tail end of that time frame, that they were giving her the wrong medicine. So we asked the social worker to file for an extension, and we were told that it was approved, but yet we still had gotten a bill, and that bill wiped out my grandmother's entire savings. I probably would have handled that part of it differently, and then yes, probably taken some legal action or called the corporate office and tried to work that out, because it was their fault. So when she came home, my grandmother was actually walking on a walker, but kind of like how a baby would when they're taking their first steps, things like that. And she just got depressed on the about in regards to like maybe she would never be able to like walk on her own again. And in fact, she, as a result, stopped walking. She could have still walked, but after she kind of gave up, when a person gives up mentally, unfortunately, things decline very quickly. So she was pretty much bound to the wheelchair. So, I lifted her. She was still able to move her legs, but yeah, I had to like lift her up and pivot her to, in and out the bed, in and out the wheelchair or the recliner. So it kind of rocked my world, because now where she had her own bedroom upstairs here, now her bed is a hospital bed and it is in the middle of the living room. So when that occurred, I'm still working a full-time job. And at that time I was going into the office every day, And so what I did was, when we came home and had that new normal, I timed myself, because I needed to make sure that I was efficient enough to get her washed up and dressed and fed and get myself taken care of, so I could go to work. So me and my aunt, did it together. And yeah, I just kept trying to get better and figure out what I could do to get better, and just trying to educate myself and had the doctors educate me. And it took a while to really find a good team of doctors. When you're taking care of somebody that you love and you hear, no, this person is going to be like this for the rest of their life, I can't describe the feeling. It's really, eye-opening, and it really takes people telling you that multiple times in multiple ways before you actually get it. And so, I mean, it's kind of like it's a grieving process essentially, because you're grieving the person that your loved one used to be. And so I was going through that. I went through a process when she first fell of, oh, it's my fault. If I never turned my back to put the walker on top of the deck, I would have been able to catch her. Or, oh, I could have slid my body down so she could have fell on me and she would have been okay. Like, I went through that, and then when she came home, like, wow, again, finding my new normal. And I was angry. It was a lot. It was a lot. It was a learning curve. But then it's like I said, when people are telling you no, you're just like, no, well, if you're telling me no, then I'm going to go find another doctor that I can get to say yes to me. So I went through a lot of neurologists, and then and it was like different things that they could have done. But then they would look at her and be like, oh, well, she's in her 80s. She's too old for this. Too old. But yet my grandmother didn't have any like heart issues. I mean, the normal high blood pressure, but like her blood pressure really wasn't that high, and it was controlled. She didn't have any health issues at that time. She was pre-diabetic, and that's essentially it. She really didn't take, depression medicine, and she took one or two, I can't remember now, blood pressure pills, and metformin, which I eventually had her come off of. So we were taking like less than 5 pills a day, if that. And that's me like grasping for straws, trying to remember right now, because she did unfortunately pass in New Year's Day 2019. So, which we'll get to anyway on this journey. But nonetheless, it was just a lot. And then, like I said, I was trying to get my master's degree and working full time. I just started my master's degree. I think I was starting it the next week, or I had already been in it for 1 week. So, because I took a break between my bachelor's and my master's. So it was like trying to get myself back acclimated in school, etc. It was a lot. It was definitely a lot. But anyway, so, it was hard to find aides as well, CNAs, because a lot of them are not comfortable with lifting, and they just, and or didn't want to do it. And then you had to pay more per hour with the agencies for them to find you a person that could lift. So at that time, granted, remember, this is like 2009 to 2010, those type of years. And so I think I was paying maybe $20 an hour to the agency, and I was paying $10 an hour private duty. Again, I know I can't do that now in 2024, but yeah, so this was back in the day. And it was hard, but I finally had found a good group of 4 caregivers that assisted me. So I was able to, still have some sanity and have, be able to take a couple of vacations so I could reset and regroup, which is very important as a caregiver. You're in it day in and day out, and you get lost. You really do get lost in it. And then it's me essentially doing it by myself with the assistance of my aunt, who we both live here with, but she can't lift. I mean, she would do it out of desperation, but she already had, bad hips, bad back, you know what I mean? So she really shouldn't have been doing it, but I mean, she do what she got to do for it. That's her mother. And so I find that a lot of caregivers too that I talk to in these families, it always seems to just be one person. Like, I'm that one person in this family, and how I ended up being that one person remains a mystery to me in some shape or form. But then when I go back and look over my life, I feel like my grandparents started training me for this, Like my grandfather, his hands used to shake. So he used to have me putting his eye drops in, because I'm left-handed. So he used to always say, oh, that left hand is a steady hand. And I'm like, okay, And then before he had gotten dementia, he wanted to teach me how to shave them so I could do that, but we never got to that point, unfortunately. And then my grandmother used to teach me about writing the bills, and she would have me take her to her appointments or like help her and handle business and things like that. And I was just like thinking like I'm just doing it because, you know, she asked me to, whatever, being a good granddaughter. And actually I was the great granddaughter. So let's just say I lived up to my name. but but anyway, yeah, I mean, I'm blessed for the opportunity because I adored my great grandparents and I was always with them growing up. And so it was, you know, it was cool, but I didn't realize at the time how much of a sacrifice it was going to be. Like, I always wanted to move to Atlanta. When I turned 17, I said, I want to go to school in Atlanta, blah, 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 but I couldn't afford out of state tuition. So I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent, but it was a lot. And so just trying to, you know, making all these sacrifices, and it's just me, and, you know, you're trying to ask for help from, you know, your other family members, and they feel like it's an inconvenience to them to help. And I'm just like, aren't we in the same family? Last time I checked, that's your grandmother or your mother just like it's mine. So why is it okay for me, you know, to sacrifice and put my life on hold and rearrange? Like, before I can go on vacation, I got to make sure that, yeah, I'm putting out money for my vacation so I can have a nice vacation, but I also have to put out extra money so I can have coverage for the times that I work with my grandmother. You know, that's a lot. Like, and I got to make sure that, you know, she's fed, blah, blah, blah. Like, people don't realize it's fine if you don't want to, you know, assume the full responsibility of being that primary person, that POA, whatever, okay? Power of attorney, POA. But there's other ways that you can assist, okay? So let's just talk about that for a minute, okay? So other ways that you can assist is just by calling the caregiver and say, hey, do you need anything? How are things going? Allowing that person to vent, you know, showing some empathy, okay? Whether you're a friend or a family member to a caregiver, okay? It means a lot. It really does, to, you know, be able to, you know, vent, or, you know, people see that. But then, you know, also bring over a meal for your loved one. That'll save me a night of having to cook, you know? Or paying somebody to bring the meals over because I'm away, or coming over and just paying the person a visit, or donating money to pay for that, for an aide to sit there with your loved one. Like, there are so many ways that you can assist if you don't want to do that entirely, you know, and it would mean so much to that caregiver, that POA, a person like myself, if people just did that. I mean, 1 hour a week of your time can mean a lot, because that's time where I can now go out to the grocery store and not be worried, you know, about my loved one being here by themselves. I mean, I have had some stressful times. One time I remember I sent out a text message to the whole family. And I said, look, I'm leaving the house. I'm going out doing what I want to do. And she just going to be in there by herself. So if you all care, somebody can go over there. Because everybody had keys to the house. And you know who showed up? My cousin's boyfriend at the time, now her husband, who was also who I paid to be one of the aides. Yeah, so all of those things really make a difference. But he was the only person that came. Nobody responded to the text message. Nobody says, okay, hey, do what you got to do. We'll go there and sit with her for a little bit. Nobody said anything. And that spoke volumes to me. And it was even more of a wake-up call. And I remember my sister saying to me, and to this day, it still hurts me to my core, well, nobody asked you to do it. That's the worst thing I feel like you can say to a caregiver. You know, you're right. Nobody did ask me to do it, but I'm doing it. And because I'm doing it, if you cared about me or your loved one, then you should help me. You know? Yeah, I felt like that was, to this day, it just riles me up. Like I do not like that. But I've tried to move on, and it's like I learned to accept that I'm not going to have any help with this, and I had to figure out a way to do it on my own terms. And that's essentially what I did. So not only was it a sacrifice of my time, but it's also a sacrifice of your money when you are a caregiver, because the generation, they don't have a lot. And so I'm speaking to the people that are watching this podcast. Like, I encourage you to make sure that you're building up for your future. Make sure you're investing in that 401k, putting money to the side in your savings, or investing in long-term care insurance or any type of form of insurance, because prices are now high right now. Excuse me, that wasn't even proper English. Prices are high right now due to inflation and things like that. So just imagine what they would be when you become a senior citizen, and you need additional support, or knock on wood, something could happen to us tomorrow. We could be in an accident, heaven forbid, and we're going to need care. Who's going to take care of us? I don't have kids yet. So essentially, when I get older, I don't have anybody. And I've already poured out my time and energy into everybody else. And I'm not going to have anybody. So best believe I'm saving for that. Okay. So that's another tip that I'm giving you. So I'm telling you all, if you're not trying to be that primary point of contact, there's other ways that you can support the person that is that person, that point of contact. Invest in your future. Okay. And so I started to try to put a break on my pockets, so to speak. I started looking up different programs and resources. And so I went to our county's Department of Aging, and they had a program. I can't remember the name of the program, but where they would pay for an aide to come out to the home for 6 hours a week. Now, I know some people might be thinking, well, 6 hours, that's nothing. That is something, because that's 2 hours, 3 days a week that that person can get my grandmother up so I can get to work earlier. So that makes a world of difference. Okay. Every little bit helps. And that put us on a waiting list for some other programs. Now, unfortunately, the state program that my grandmother was on, because there's a wait list for everything, by the time she got off that program, she had already passed. But because I knew what I knew, I also at one point had my great grandmother and her daughter, which is my grandmother, who I was taking care of. So I had two people I was taking care of now at the same time. And so I made sure that I put my grandmother on those lists so she was able to get on the program. Okay. So, yeah, we'll just call her, for the sake of the podcast, Mimi. Okay. So you have Nana, my great grandmother, and Mimi, my grandmother. Okay. And so I was able to do that. So definitely reach out to your local Department of Aging and talk to them about different programs and resources. And, if your loved one is still, able-minded and able to move and communicate, they have where you can go to the Department of Aging, the senior center. It's usually the Department of Aging is within a senior center, and your loved one can go to the senior center. They have trips that they take. They have activities. Like I told my grandmother, I wanted her to learn some Spanish just to keep her mind going. Okay. So Mimi suffers from vascular dementia due to strokes and seizures. Again, I am not a medical professional. Okay. But I have definitely learned a lot from the doctors, and I'm so gracious that they have trained me, educated me, had patience with me along the journey. So, I used to have my grandmother go to the senior center 2 days a week, and I would get her an Uber home. Now she is in adult daycare. So that's another resource too, that you can utilize. And sometimes the counties or the state does pay for your loved one to go to the adult daycare. Or if you're not eligible to be a part of that program, the sometimes the adult daycares also have financial assistance with it. So never be afraid to ask for financial assistance or a hardship application. When my grandmother got like her bed, so yeah, when Nana got her bed, her wheelchair, and anything else that she needed, I always ask the companies, do you have a financial support application or a hardship application? Some places call it different things. And I filled that out because she was only getting a social security check. And that social security check, the entire check went to paying the aides, and I had to pay for everything else for both Nana and Mimi. Okay. And still try to find some money to save. It's hard. But yeah, so the state programs, they give you a little bit more. So we are currently in a program for my state. Your state may call it something different, but that's why you have to start with the Department of Aging so they can kind of give you everything that you may qualify for. Where we are approved through this community options waiver for 60 hours a week. So that means that the state will pay for an aide to be with Mimi for 60 hours a week. That is amazing. So right now I just pay for overnight care for her, which is a pretty penny, don't get me wrong. Let's just, yeah. But yeah, that helps. That's the majority, you know. That was a blessing. So I encourage you to do that. If your loved one or their spouse was in the military, there's a program offered by the VA called Aid and Attendance that will give you money, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, because I did it with Nana, every month to help pay for the care of your of that veteran or the veteran spouse. And you just have to turn in the vet's DD 214 and fill out the application. Now, back when I did this, I don't even know, 2013 or so, somewhere around that time frame, it was a wait. Okay. It was a wait. Everything that you want to get is always a wait for it. Okay. But when we did get awarded that program, they gave us the back pay from when I first put in the application to current. So that was a major help because we weren't living paycheck to paycheck, so to speak, to figure out how we can make things, move and shake. Okay. So yeah. So again, recap for our financial support, VA aid and attendance, your state programs, your local county or city Department of Aging. Now, Nana had breast cancer, which is what she ultimately passed from. And there were cancer support organizations also that would also give like one time a year, I guess, grants. So there was one grant that gave us, I think, $250 each year. So that's something too. So if your loved one has some type of disease, cancer, or any other type of thing, look up those organizations because they understand what it takes and they can provide you with support groups, resources, and like I said, perhaps financial assistance or assistance with paying for medications. Because for illnesses such as cancer, those medications can cost a lot of money. So yeah, definitely encourage you there. I tried to have for both Nana and Mimi, all of their doctors go through the hospital. So that way everybody could see and work together as far as their care from a medical perspective. And so if we got a bill, I would reach out to the hospital's financial team and ask for a financial and hardship application. And it covered them for a whole year of care based on what your income is. Okay. That would determine what and if you were eligible for those financial hardships. So that was a huge blessing too, that covered everything. So again, it just takes the time, and any information that I have, I'm trying to share with you all. So feel free, like I said, if you have any questions or you're going through it, just put it in there. And we can talk about it in week 4 of this month's episodes. With Nana passing, she was probably the closest relative to me, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to do so. I wish a lot of things that I know now I knew back then, but it is a learning journey, a learning curve, and all I can do is make myself better for the next time, if there's a next time, which in my case it is because of Mimi. So I am making sure that I'm asking the right questions. I'm doing, pulling all these different resources so to make it a little bit easier for myself and helping out others in that scenario. So, but yeah, being a caregiver is a lot. Just like being a parent is a lot. I always tell my friends when they say, yeah, I got to do this, this, and this for my son, my daughter, whatever. And I'm like, that's, I'm not discrediting that. No, I'm not a parent, right? But I always tell my friends, remember, your child is going to grow up to become more independent. Your elderly person that you're taking care of is going to grow up and become more dependent. And they're going to require much more care and attention. And especially when dementia steps through, there's so many phases of caregiving, just like there's so many phases of grieving. There's so many levels to it, which we'll probably talk about those in another episode. But there's one level where it's anger. Like I talked a little bit about some, I just didn't, correlate it to the stages of caregiving. But there was a point where Nana didn't want to eat or drink anymore. And if you're a caregiver, when they get to that point where they don't want to eat and drink. We probably had that like 3 or 4 times in the 10 years I took care of Nana. But towards the end, dementia kicked in for her the last year of her life, and she did not want to eat. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And the pill that she was taking for her cancer treatment, the chemotherapy pill, it was working to shrink the tumors. I could not understand. Like, I understand it now, but when I look back at myself then, I would get so frustrated that she did not want to take that pill. And, when I knew that this dementia was getting ready to kick in, I had actually gotten a feeding tube put in her just in case, to make sure I could still give her proper nutrition and things, and water and things like that. This was her second time with a feeding tube. But the chemotherapy pill you cannot crush. So, I mean, I was really angry, like, because I'm just like, why wouldn't you want to do something that's going to help you? I want you to get better. Just because you want something as the caregiver or point of contact doesn't mean they want it. Okay? It doesn't mean that they want it. It's like, although they had dementia and, their mind is not seeing clearly, I feel like sometimes they know. they know deep inside what's going on. They might not be able to express it, but yeah, she didn't want to do that. So the cancer started spreading rapidly. I remember that was October of 2018. And like I said, she passed New Year's Day. So yeah, so she went, the cancer, this was her 3rd round of cancer, and it was metastatic to her kidneys. And so the tumor started growing. Her stomach had gotten really huge. And it was just, she didn't want to eat anything. So, and I remember, there were other moments in the earlier before that when she didn't have dementia, but she was just depressed and she just didn't want to eat or drink anything. And I remember talking to someone one day and they were saying, yeah, my parent was like that too at one point and would only eat McDonald's apple pies. And I was like, well, that's such a random thing, like, to eat. And they were like, yes, but that's what she wanted. We made sure we had a whole lot of them. So it's like, when you get to that certain stage with your loved one and they want what they want, just give it to them. Because at least they're doing something. Okay? At least they're doing something. And then, trying to also get them to drink an Ensure. And I know not a lot of people are crazy about Ensures, the whole milk taste and all those type of drinks. But Ensure does have Ensure Clear. I've been telling a lot of people about that because a lot of people didn't know that. It's basically juice. I think they have 3 flavors. So my grandmother liked that. And I remember seeing a nurse in the hospital. She was like, yeah, we're always running. And I was like, oh, you drink Ensure? She was like, yeah, because sometimes I don't get to have lunch. So this is me trying to make sure I get my nutrients in. I was like, that's smart, actually. So, yeah. So it's fine. If they can drink some juice and be happy, I'm with it. I'm totally with it. So I recommend that too. Because a lot of people don't realize about Ensure Clear. I don't guess they really advertise it as much. But yeah. So I covered a lot as an intro to caregiving here. We'll be talking about it as time goes on. Again, answering any questions that you all may have, or, sharing any comments that you all may post or what have you. Feel free. This is a This is open territory, no judgment here. As real as I am with you all, I want you to be real with me, okay? If it's something that you feel like I missed, as far as like the financial options and looking for assistance and help and views about from the family perspective and things like that, let me know. Let me know. I'm not perfect. I am still learning. I am still on my journey of caregiving, and every day is a new day. Just like today, I gotta go pick up Mimi from daycare. I had an aide quit on me this week. I gotta find a new aide and figure out when I'm gonna have the time to train her. It's always something. Always something. It's never a dull moment, but I wouldn't trade the experience for anything, because it really shows you who you are. And again, that valuable time that you have with your loved one, now that you're like an adult. Like, of course you have your bonding time when you're a child with them, but it's definitely a good experience. So yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world, and I'm glad that I was chosen to do that opportunity. So, but again, the bottom line is, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Reach out to that loved one that is the caregiver or that main support system in your family, and just find out if they're okay. Take a dish over, listen to them chat, give them a break, help them find resources, because we're all going to be in this predicament at some point in our lives. It's unfortunate, but that's the realization of it all. So, but that's enough for today. Thank you all so much.